Hello. Welcome back. This, I believe, is our final interview of the day. We are very excited to welcome Brent Landau, the Executive Director of the Public Interest Law Center, an institution in Philadelphia, in the legal space. We are, of course, commemorating Election Day. If you have not yet voted, you have until 8 o'clock this evening to either go to the polls or to turn in your mail-in ballot. Brent, thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate your time today on what is going to be a really interesting and exciting election afternoon and evening.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome, cool. So let's kind of start off with some basics for the viewers. So for those who are not familiar, can you tell everyone what the Public Interest Law Center does and how your work helps ensure fairness and accountability in Philadelphia and across Pennsylvania?
Sure. The Public Interest Law Center challenges poverty, discrimination, and inequality in Philadelphia and throughout Pennsylvania using high impact litigation, organizing, and advocacy. We work in six main areas: housing, employment, healthcare, public education, environmental justice, and voting rights. There's always a need for public interest organizations to enforce existing laws and expand legal protections in all our areas of work. But today, under the Trump administration, the need is even greater because we can no longer rely on the federal government to act in its traditional role as a defender and enforcer of civil rights. And so the Public Interest Law Center has been stepping in where the government has been stepping back from that role. For example, when the federal government sought to terminate consent orders in place to ensure fair lending with banks that had alleged to have engaged in predatory or unfair lending practices, redlining. We went to court to keep that in place for the full term of the consent order. When the government abandoned a case it had brought alleging race discrimination against a convenience store chain for not hiring people with criminal records, we stepped in to continue that lawsuit, even as the government stepped away from the case. And we also are representing young patients and their families whose private medical records have been sought by the Trump Department of Justice because they received gender affirming care at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. So we are stepping up to respond to the uniquely uh, uh, unique threats that we're seeing right
Mhm. So you have a wide portfolio of stuff
now.
that you all work on for sure. Wonderful. You've handled major cases involving civil rights, corporate misconduct, community justice, etc. What are some experiences that have taught you, what it takes to hold powerful institutions to account? What are some of those experience, or what have those experiences taught you?
Yeah, so it's a struggle that requires constant vigilance. Those with power will always try to take advantage of those without it. But it's not hopeless. We can get the world that we want, and everyone who cares about creating a culture of equality and fairness has a role to play, whether it's through voting or calling elected officials or supporting organizations that do this sort of work on a daily basis. And we're really fortunate at the Public Interest Law Center to have the platform that we have and to come to work every day to advance this mission. For example, just a few days ago, we brought a new class action lawsuit against the owners of a 144 unit apartment complex in Northwest Philadelphia, where the property owner had failed to repair the property to the point that the city Department of License Inspections actually said that building was unsafe. Uh, but meanwhile, the landlord was still collecting rent from
Mhm.
the tenants in violation of the law. And so we're holding the property owner accountable for allowing people's homes to fall into that sort of disrepair.
Yep. So again, it's a lot of activities that you're all doing to hold powerful institutions accountable. It's great. Transparency is probably part of, it is very much a hallmark of the government that we want in our democracy. But in practical terms, it can kind of seem like an abstract idea. in practical terms, what does it look like when the government, when courts or public officials are truly transparent to the people that they serve?
Well, for one, elected officials need to listen to all voices when implementing public policy, not just a chosen few with access and privilege, and be responsive to constituents' needs. So, take the housing debate going on right now in Philadelphia. There are a lot of powerful interests who can make a lot of money depending on what direction the city goes and building new housing or refurbishing the existing housing stock. But what the city does and who it prioritizes is critical. There are low income renters in Philadelphia who are under threat of housing instability. Just one stroke of bad luck and they could wind up homeless. So it's
Hmm.
incredibly important that the mayor and city council hear from those folks and prioritize affordable housing. That's just one example. The point is,
Hmm.
as you said in the question, that public officials are supposed to be responsive to the public, not just a select few.
Right, absolutely. So one of the, I think maybe the biggest race that everybody in Pennsylvania is focused on are those three retention races for the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court. And we've also got races further down the ballot,
Mhm.
both for open court seats and then for common court pleas and municipal judgeships. And so without weighing in on any individual candidates, what qualities should voters look for in judges who seek to uphold transparency and accountability in the courts?
So a fair jurist is one who's true to the values of the Constitution, and our federal and state constitutions are only as strong as the people enforcing them. So I think an important concept for everybody to understand is that the federal Constitution is really the floor for our rights. The state constitution can provide a greater level of protection, and the Pennsylvania Constitution has a wide range of language and provisions that aren't in the federal document, and those are actually the source of some of our really important rights. And so, it's state constitutional principles that have led to some of our recent successes at the Public Interest Law Center, including in voting rights and education equity, going back to the gerrymandering case where the Pennsylvania Supreme Court threw out the country's most gerrymandered map because it violated the elections clause of the Pennsylvania Constitution. Or more recently, just a couple of months ago, there was a decision in one of our cases that came out of Washington County, Pennsylvania, but it had to do with whether county boards of elections need to notify voters that they've made a mistake on their mail-in ballot so that they have a chance to do something about it. And the court held that counties do have that obligation to let voters know and not mislead them about the status of their ballot. Uh, Another is the school funding litigation that we have handled for a number of years, where the courts upheld the right of every student to an adequate education and declared that Pennsylvania's system for funding public schools violated that state constitution and that the legislature needed to do something to address that adequacy gap. So all of those come from the state constitution, and that's why it's so important that we have judges in Pennsylvania who's going to be true to the values of the Constitution.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I like the way you put that, that the federal constitution, that's the floor of our rights and
Right.
everything can stack on top of that. I think that's a really good thing for us to remember. One of the topics that we've heard other interviewers talk about, but I think it's something as we elect or go to the polling place day to elect judges, is the idea of judicial independence. And even though we're electing judges in a political process, can you talk a little bit about the value that you see in judicial independence outside of the political process?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's incredibly important because we want our judges to first and foremost look to the laws and the Constitution and be able to protect the rights that are guaranteed there and not be beholden to other sorts of interests. And so judicial independence is really paramount for that.
Yep, absolutely. So the Law Center has an active docket of cases on the right to vote. You just went through a number of recent
Mm.
successes too, which I think is really helpful for our viewers to understand the types of work, not only that you do, but the broad scale impacts of the decisions that judges are making. Your cases typically involve people who have been denied the right to vote, or I shouldn't say denied the right to vote, denied the vote, or had their
Mm.
ballot rejected or challenged. Is there a trend here? Are voters being challenged more frequently in recent cycles? Do we have any other line of defense besides the court? That's a lot of questions. Maybe we can take one at a time.
Yeah, well, they're
Yeah,
important questions, so
right,
thank you
right.
for asking them. We've
Mm,
we have seen challenges in recent cycles that we haven't seen before, like last year when people who voted overseas or who had recently changed
mm,
their address had their mail ballots challenged in large batches, like by the thousands, and all those
mm,
challenges were rejected as being without merit, but it's really a threat to the ability of voters to cast their ballot. And actually, we've recently sought to intervene in the federal government's lawsuit against the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania seeking private voter data to create a federal voter
mm,
database that would be used just to facilitate more of these baseless sorts of challenges. So those are definitely on the rise. The legislature could definitely solve some of the problems in terms of barriers to voting, particularly the Pennsylvania election code, which is antiquated in many respects. Um, there doesn't seem to be much of a consensus to do that in the General Assembly right now,
mm.
and that really leaves the courts to enforce the state constitution and its protections for voters' rights. Another line of defense, though, is constituent accountability. So much happens at the county level regarding
Mhm.
elections, and people just need to pay attention to what
Right.
their county boards of election are doing. The boards of election in each county are making decisions that impact whose ballots are counted and how easy or difficult it is to vote. Things like, are there going to be mail ballot drop boxes? How many of them? And where are they going to be? Is there going to be a
Mm,
process for curing or fixing mail ballots that have errors? Where are the polling places going to be? So the county boards of elections have a lot of power and a lot of influence on how straightforward or challenging exercising the right to vote can be.
absolutely. Absolutely. As we are fond of saying around here, voting is necessary, but it's not sufficient. It's the baseline
Right.
of what we do, but there are a lot of other ways. And I think to your point, there's a lot of different things that we can do as residents of Philadelphia and Pennsylvania to help make sure that everyone's right to vote is not infringed upon, and uh, other forms of engagement to be involved in. Is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you think is important for our viewers to note before we sign off? And they have about, what, 5 hours and 45 minutes left to get to the polls. Anything else that you want to share?
Well, just what you said at the beginning, which is to make sure to go out and vote today. It's extremely important. And
Mhm.
voting is the right by which all of our other rights can be exercised. And so it's fundamental to everything that is important to us. And I hope everyone makes sure that they get out to vote still today.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Landau. I really appreciate your time. Keep up the great work at the Public Interest Law Center. We really appreciate your time today, and happy Election Day.
Thank you very much. Thanks for all you do.